Hello, Brooke.
Hello.
We're recording for our friends at Inktavo. So, and when thinking about sales or sales support or success at SignTracker, just remember SignTracker really does four things well. And that's what I always try to tell people because most of the sign shops that we're dealing with, and I'm going to make a little video. Jess asked me to make a little video to kind of show that your typical shop makeup and the types of products that they sell. Um, but the processes for almost every type of sign are the same. Some are a little bit simpler than others. And so, we can talk through that a little bit. But what Sign Tracker really helps with is four things. One, jobs don't fall through the cracks. And the tools that we have for that are going to be the job flow board, which you're a pro. The job flow board is where someone calls in, they need a quote on a sign, or they want to start a project, or whatever it may be, and you just go new job, you capture the client's information, and it puts a job on the job card, which you already know how to do, but we'll look at that in a minute for our other friends at Inktavo that don't necessarily know how to do that. The second thing that SignTracker solves is once you have that job set up, is all the stuff that goes into that job is in one place, which is huge. So whether it's project files, copies of permits, art files, whatever they may be, notes, quotes, um, you'll start the task management process from inside of signs. There's forms, there's sign templates. I mean, all the stuff, but all the moving parts of that project live in that job. I like to think of it as an electronic job folder. So that's the second thing that it solves. One, the job won't fall through the cracks. And two, you won't lose all the stuff on the job. Three, because you set up tasks inside the job, and now with our upcoming task board, it's going to even be better, is that everyone in the shop will know what to do. They'll be able to see where the jobs are at with this job flow board, but they'll know what to do every day. So they won't just come into work and go, "Oh my God, boss, what do I do?" SignTracker helps to solve that problem. And lastly, the other problem, and probably the most important, is how do I quote more consistently? And I think SignTracker definitely helps to solve that. So that's what we're going to look at today. You're already very familiar with SignTracker. So for those of our friends here at Inktavo that might be watching the Joe and Brooke show today, those are the four things we're going to talk about. So when you're talking about, at least from a brand new customer, and you're trying to sort of gently onboard them and help them to be successful, just remember those are the four problems that you're trying to solve. So I'm going to share my screen, and can you see my screen, Brooke?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna minimize this annoying floating meeting control, and you can stop me. And I when I do my demos, I always tell folks, like, we just had a demo, three sign shops showed up, it was great. And I always tell them, look, when we're chatting through this, feel free. It's not just like a pitch, right? If we understand those are the four pain points that SignTracker is trying to solve, then it's just fine. Let them talk about what they might be struggling with. They might not say anything through a demo. They might just be absorbing it. But then there's going to be times where it's like, well, this is the problem I have in my sign shop. Remember, whatever they say, it's going to fall into one of those four categories for sure. Okay, so first off, I always show people the dashboard because there's a lot of resources here. We have a help center, videos that'll help walk them through the initial setup, a quick start guide, training video. So this takes you to our YouTube channel where we have it's their playlists. There's an overview video of each section. So whether it's quoting, job management, setup, whatever it might be. And then there's mini videos that sort of break down those different processes. So those are a great tool to point folks to as they're just coming on board. And recorded webinars, like today, I just recorded the full-length webinar on quoting, so I'll be posting that later on to the YouTube channel. So I don't post every single recording because I go through the same thing every single time. So at any point, when they log in and watch one of those videos, the information is pretty relevant. Other than I will say, we're about ready to add a pretty big feature in SignTracker, which is the task board. So my guess is Joe's going to have to re-record a lot of videos, but I have Craig now to help me, so that's really good. Of course, we have the Facebook group. So here we do post, when we do upload a new video, we always share it there to let them know. If we have feature updates, or, also we've been cross-posting our podcast and that sort of thing, which is behind the signs. So even when you're onboarding folks, I always kind of try to point them to Behind the Signs as a great resource because they can ask questions to other sign shops, and I monitor that pretty heavily with my daughter Elizabeth, and we try really hard to keep it as professional as possible. So, and we do give big shout outs to Inktavo on almost everything we do there. So it's been a great tool. But I'd try to point sign shops there as well. And then and this is a great sales tool, I think. Unless I'm at a trade show, I do these live webinars twice a week. And, I would say from support to sales to just anybody taking a phone call about SignTracker, if you can point them to join Joe at one of the webinars, and they can ask, I end up getting asked a lot of just general sign industry questions in those meetings, but I think it's a great assistance to selling. Okay, so now those are just the tools and resources that you can point customers to that will help them to onboard and be successful in the app. Then now we're going to get into the four problems that SignTracker solves. So when somebody calls in, so basically somebody calls in, they set up a new job. Of course, they can set up a new job from the dashboard. There's a couple different places, but let's talk about that. So customer calls in. So a lot of times, what do? They want to grab a Post-it note and write the information down. But if you can get into the habit, either as a sign shop owner or project manager, whoever's using SignTracker at the shop, just to open up new job. Just consider this like an electronic Post-it note for a new job. And we're going to name this job banner. We'll keep it super simple. We'll say this is a 4x8 banner. And you'll do an initial syncing with QuickBooks, so all of your customers will come over from QuickBooks if you're doing that. If you're not, that's fine. They can. We're just going to go ahead and pick one, so you don't have to watch me type terribly slow. Figures I picked one with no address. Let's try another one. So basically, if it's a new customer, let's say this is a brand new customer, you can just go ahead and enter them here. You don't have to, go to the contact section or go to QuickBooks and sync or anything like that. Just do it here. All their information is going to pre-populate. Now this job, for history's sake, is going to be tagged to this company. So you'll always have it. Even if they don't get the job and they archive it, they can always find this information in the system. Now we go add a contact. So not only are we tagging this job to the company, but now we're also tagging it to an individual within that company. So when you go to look up the historical data, you can see. So again, this is helping to solve that first problem of not letting the job fall through the cracks. And then later on, they can see that, oh, not only did I do this job for ABC Bank, but we have 5 different people we work with there. I actually did the job with Bob. So if the job is a product or a service job, that just shows up on the calendar, a different color. Most jobs are going to default as a product job. The difference between product and service is a product job is when you're fabricating a sign, and it could include install, it could include whatever. A service job is if you have a component to your sign shop where you do service and repair. If you have a project manager on the job, I always pick on Brooke when I'm doing live demos. So Brooke is the forever project manager in SignTracker, and Joe is the forever salesperson in SignTracker. So the reason why that's important is because when you actually sell the job to the customer and they approve the contract, both the project manager and the sales rep are going to get an email that says, Yahoo, Joe signed up on the contract. If you know a due date at this point, great. If you don't, it's fine. If the project is different from the billing address, the location, you'll go ahead and put that here. And if it's the same, you can just leave it blank. Most times it's probably going to be the same. Sorry for my slow typing. And we're going to go ahead and submit this. So now we've created this job. So problem 1 solved. The job, I'm going to close out of this for a second. The job did not fall through the cracks. It is now on the job flow board. So we've solved the first problem. Now, on a job flow board, how this works is this job moves through stages of production. So you're always going to see where the job is, if they need to, inform the customer, where they're at in the process or whatever. But The job flow board is also a great tool. We used it at our shop to do project management meetings. So we had two project management meetings a week where we went through each job card and we talked about where the job was at. And a lot of sign shops end up putting this on a bigger monitor in their shop, and it lets everyone in the shop know where all the jobs are at. And if you work in the shop and you don't want to see all this stuff like opportunity, quote, design, we have options for having different views, right? So if I want to hide some of these columns, I can do it. So anyway, again, when you're talking to customers, there's different little videos on the YouTube channel they can watch to walk them through all that if they need help with that. But okay, so now we've solved problem number one. Problem number two is all the stuff, right, that goes into a job. So it's going to be here. You can start building out task assignments to the job, so different components that have to be done. And these tasks can be built out as templates. So we're just going to pick a super simple one, banner. It's already preset up. So now each of these tasks can start to be assigned, to somebody in the shop. You can save it. You can add a due date to it. So let's say this task has to be done by the 25th. And really, once the job sells, this is really important too, to start laying out the timeline for everything that has to be done on a job. So if you have a due date, let's say this job is, due on the 11th, it's not going to be tomorrow, but and then you can start, well, if I'm going to hit this due date, I have to have this done by here, 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 here. So that's how pretty much that works. These tasks are fed into a task list, which is going to help solve problem number three, which we'll get to. But anyway, so this is where tasks are set up for projects. Notes, anybody can write a note on a job, but this is nice too, because I used it a lot at my sign shop if somebody emailed me. So if someone emailed me and said, hey, I approve this color change, I would copy and paste the whole email and I would just type in, color change, and I'd paste it, red, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the note was from inside the email, I'd paste it there. I use this a lot. And so again, it's helping them keep the information in one place for this job. Attachments, so they can have multiple attachments on a job. So I always say like, hey, all the production files, logo files. So they can either drag and drop, or they can just select them, whatever, and upload them to the job. So again, it's all the pieces and parts of the job are still here in one place. And it doesn't really matter, if it's a PNG file, PDF, usually you have a thumbnail there. So sometimes it loads a little slow, but that's because it's a big file. But they can look at a full version of the thumbnail. They can come in here. They can change the name of it if they want. Let's say this is the final production file. So use printer number 1 for this file, and I can add a tag and I can say this is final production. So you can create all these tags for these different files. And so this is great even for doing surveys in the field. So if you go out, to the field and you're using an iPad or even a phone, you'd have to pull up SignTracker through your browser, but you can just click that little square and navigate to your camera and upload all your photos. But where this comes in handy, especially if you archive the job, you don't have to worry about going to a separate drive or somewhere else, or where the heck did I store those files? These will stay with the job forever. But even in the case of what people have to do, what your team members have to do in the course of a day, if they go to the task list, and maybe the task is print file, well, they can right from the task list, click the job, come here, find the production file, click that, it filters it out, and then they know this is their file. I'm not sure why this thumbnail is not showing up, so we'll have to put in a ticket for that. Sometimes they load a little slow. I'm not sure why, especially if they're big, but okay, but that's how you organize all your files. And you can have anything from permit files to, whatever, customer layouts, anything. And you can save, again, it's AI, PDF, CorelDRAW, SVG files, all of it. Contracts and worksheets, we'll come back to that. in a minute, because that's problem number four that SignTracker solves. But there are a bunch of forms too. So anything from work orders and survey sheets and all these. And if you just open one of these forms, it pre-populates with information from the job. They can edit them, save it, and it sends it back into the job and puts it under the completed form. So all of their documentation that they might create while managing this project is going to end up there. And of course, this is just kind of a little bonus thing. Sign templates. We worked with a technical designer a few years back. So this is actually like a great selling feature, actually. Like, wow, these are really cool. So because they help with their presentations to look a little bit more professional. And in some cases, they need these kind of detailed drawings just to get permits and all that. So, and there's simple ones. We did everything from, just vehicle magnets to, yard signs, super simple ones. And so, but this is a great selling feature, I think. And it's a big help too, because a lot of sign shops, I mean, they might have a graphic designer, but generally that graphic designer isn't going to be as technical as what this is. So this kind of, these kinds of drawings help them with their sales. It just helps with a lot of different things. But okay, so before we get into the quoting part, I wanted to talk about problem number three. Uh, Problem number three is who's doing what at the shop every day. So this is where the task list and soon to be task board comes in. So we'll go to the task list since we don't have a task board yet. But if I come to the shop in the morning and say, all right, boss Joe, man, what do I have to do today? I don't have to ask Joe. I can just come here. I'm logged in as myself. I can just filter this out by today and say, okay, what do I have to do today? Oh, look, Joe has no tasks assigned to him today. Joe's going fishing. But if you were really using this and you had, real dates, then you'd have them. But so we'll just look at any time. But again, from here, I use the heck out of this, by the way. The last sign shop I had because I can't remember my own name from the time I wake up in the morning till I go to bed. So if a customer called or anybody needed anything, I would just open the job up. Again, inside that job, not losing the information. I would just open the task. I'd write a task. I'd assign a due date to it. It's going to send me an email reminder. It's going to end up on my task list every day. So I use the heck out of it. And again, if your job is to print something, here's my job. I'm going to print banner right from here. I can just click this. It's going to go to the job. I go to my attachments. I can see my final production. I filter it out. I download it. I see there's a note on it. And so I don't have to bother anybody about what I have to do today. I just know what to do. So I kind of feel like between the job flow board being on a large monitor, and I always encourage sign shops to do that because monitors are pretty cheap these days, and the task list, if they have people that work in the shop that aren't going to be sitting in front of a computer every day, at least if they can see all the jobs, it creates that sense of like urgency, like, oh man, we have a lot of stuff on our plate. And then they can also go to a single place and figure out what they have to do every day. That's massive. That's a massive shift in efficiency for a shop. And I was like, tell the story, I mean, you can make up your own stories, Brooke. Or you could just take my story and pretend it was you. But I went to a sign shop one time in College Station. Oh my gosh, it was a nightmare. It was resupply, and he really cared about his customer, and he begged me to drive from Austin to College Station to sit in the sign shop and show them how to use SignTracker. I sat in that office for, I don't know, it's like maybe 30 minutes, an hour. I forget. It was frustrating. I couldn't talk for more than one sentence before someone came in and interrupted the owner of that shop. What do I do next? And this helps with that tremendously. I mean, yeah, you're going to have to interact with your employees and have production meetings and, all that, sure. But this is going to help a lot to solve that third problem. So, okay, so now we're going to get out of here and we're going to go back into our job that we created, and we're going to solve the last problem, and that is quoting consistently. And so if a customer calls in, they basically hit, contracts. They can create a new contract. Now, there are videos you can watch to, show you how to set all this stuff up. It's not that difficult. It's the scariest part though, right? Like it's the scariest hurdle that people sort of push back a little bit. Oh man, that's like a lot of setup. I always say, and I just did a webinar today, that Rome wasn't built in a day. So if you can get all your materials and your labor rates built in, and even if you don't get them all in at first, just the ones that you use most. And then when you have to quote a 4x8 banner, just go to the setup section, build out the template for a 4x8 banner, save it, then come back into the job and quote it. And then you have the template forever. And those templates that you create on the back end can also be cloned. So if you build one out really detailed, clone it, adjust some of the sizes and quantities, save it as the new product. The next one, add a category, for yard signs, illuminated cabinets, whatever they may be, channel letter signs. But I never encourage the customers, any customer that says to me, I'm not going to roll this thing out till I build every single quoting template since my grandfather started this company, forget it. Tell them, don't tell them anything. Just say, okay, you got this, buddy. But let's say you're going to start, you're going to quote this job. So basically how the quoting works is this is the worksheet, right? And then you add line items to the worksheet. This is basically a copy of what we call the master template. So you can just add materials, you can add labor, you can add formula items. Formula items are things like, they're completed things. So if a banner is a 4x8 single-sided banner with hems and grommets and printed and ready to go out the door, and you sell it for $100, that could be a formula item. It's just a completed thing. Or that same banner divided by the square footage amount is $5 a square foot. Again, a completed thing. So the better way to be quoting is materials and labor. But this is just a blank worksheet. So if they wanted to do something on the fly, it already has preset, which you set all this up on the back end, preset, markup amounts. And then you just basically start adding materials, and then you go to labor section, start adding labor, and it kind of adds things up as they're going along. They can see what they're going to make per category. And then at the end of it, they can type in a description, title it, save it. But I won't, because where SignTracker really speeds things up and helps to solve the problem of consistent quoting is building the templates, right? So basically I come in here, I have all these different sign type categories. And don't panic, Inktavo team. I'm going to be making a video talking about all these different sign types, but for the most part, it's really just a breakdown of materials and labor. And steps of production are pretty similar in all of them. Some just have more steps of production than others. And that's just a matter of building out the task templates to match the product type. The task board obviously is going to help with that too. So 4x8 banner, I already have this built up. I can make any little tweaks and changes I need to if I want to. I might come down here and add my taxes, and it already has a description when you set these up. Save it. It adds a line item. They can write a nice little note to the customer. Thanks so much. Or, hey, if it's wall graphics, we need to have access to the inside of the store, whatever it may be. And then you can add multiple line items. So if I wanted to add another product, I could. If this product was one thing they were selling and there was another one that they needed to sell, but it was a different size, they can clone it. So if I just go in here, I go, okay, I'm going to take this one, I'm going to clone it. I'm going to make any little adjustments. Let's say I'm going to change this to a 3x6 because I don't have a 3x6 template. I might have to adjust this a little bit. Might have to adjust labor a little bit, but I'm not going to go through all that. And taxes are already here. And then I would just change what it is that I changed, which in this case, it was the size. So I'll make an adjustment there and make an adjustment here and save it. So now I added another line item, which is just a quoting template to the worksheet. Now I'm ready to convert it to a contract. I just go save and view. And it's a contract ready to go. So there's two different ways to present that to the customer. One, you can download it, good old school way, download it as a PDF, attach any other additional files, whether it's proofs or whatever, to your email, send it off to the customer, or you can create a customer link. So I just click that, open up my email, paste in the link. Hey, Joe, here's the quote. for your sign. So I'm the customer. I click the link. I go sign and approve. Joe A. Send. And if you are tagged as the project manager or the sales rep on this job, you're going to get an email that says, "Hey, Joe just approved the contract. You're ready to move this sign into production." And so now I have it, it's signed, it's approved. And then from here, because I'm still inside this same job, I could just move it into whatever stage that I set up for production, which in this case would be pre-production. It's ready to hit the floor. And then I can make adjustments, if I needed to make adjustments to the due date or whatever. So that's it. I mean, when you're talking, I think when you're talking to customers, of course, there's deeper dives into setup and all that kind of stuff. But when you're talking to customers about the problems that SignTracker solves, again, one, it keeps the jobs from falling through the cracks. Two, it keeps the components of the jobs from getting lost. Three, it helps everyone in the shop know what the heck they're doing every day. And four, it helps you do consistent quoting. All right, Team Inktavo, that is a wrap for this little intro. So hopefully, thank you, first of all, to Brooke for hanging out with me for an hour while we recorded that. And I did a little chopping and editing, so it was a little bit easier to watch. But hopefully this is helpful to you as you embark on supporting and selling SignTracker. And I just want you to know, as the founder of SignTracker, how much I appreciate all of you very much. So thank you. And I am here on Slack. You can always reach me. I hope that I will always be a great resource for you when it comes to anything about the sign industry or SignTracker. So thanks a bunch and talk to you soon. Bye.